Joanna, on May 8th, Daimler Truck unveiled its battery electric autonomous Freightliner eCascadia. Why unveil the truck now?
Hey, Grayson, thanks for having me. This is a wonderful question. And the reason is because we have made really great progress on both sides, so the electric side and also the autonomous side. Let me tell that story just real quick. Electric, today we are in the series production phase. We have our eCascadia already since 2022 in production. We are launching more product portfolio. We now have the EM2 also in production. So that we can say we moved through the phases of gaining knowledge. Now we're really in the phase of gaining business on the electric side. On the autonomous side, we're still in the development phase. However, we are also making great progress when it comes to the vehicle platform, so the redundant chassis, and all the hardware that is being integrated with our partner Torque. We have now successfully awarded our entire sensor suite. We're making progress on compute, and everything is working towards a production intent solution. So now that we have both sides in a state that we could combine them from a vehicle integration perspective, hardware integration, but also from a motion controllability, we felt this would be a great opportunity for us to showcase what it would take to build a scalable and propulsion agnostic platform.
You mentioned the commercialization on electrification that's happening. You have the partnership for the charging infrastructure. Your autonomy program continues to move. You have over 50% market share in the traditional trucks. By combining electrification and autonomy, are you signaling to the markets that Daimler's getting ready to commercialize this autonomous technology?
So right now we're definitely in a tech demonstration phase, so it's still an advanced engineering project. However, we want to use this as an opportunity to explore what new business models could be with an autonomous electric combination, what use cases this could work for, and especially just be ready when both technologies are ready for the market. We are looking into shorter routes, medium haul, more repeatable routes as a first use case. And think about, the unit economics also for an electric vehicle will look much better if you can virtually run it 24/7. You have this fairly expensive asset, and if you can get more out of that over the course of the day, that also will make sense for fleets. The key will be that we can leverage the infrastructure synergies between charging and autonomous hubs. So ideally, the charging depot would also be the launch and landing location for the autonomous vehicle. So we do not introduce any inefficiencies by having to go through a special autonomous hub. That is really the prerequisite for the economies in this case.
I was speaking to an executive at a Class 1 railroad, and we were talking about intermodal. And the conversation started on the West Coast, as most of these conversations start, but then it quickly shifted to the East Coast because of the changing volumes of maritime freight. And one of the ports that we honed in on was the Port of Savannah. There's a very large inland port there, about, I believe, 90 to 110 miles inland from the Port of Savannah. Is that an application where you have energy on both sides, both at the port side and the inland port side? You have a fixed route. The vehicle goes from the port, inland port, port, back and forth. Is that an example that you can run those autonomous electric trucks all day and create economic value for your customers?
That would definitely be a use case we would look into. I would say it all comes also to the capabilities of the autonomous driving software provider at this stage. Right now, most of the providers, including Truck Robotics, they're all focusing on the highway use case hub to hub, and that's definitely would be an expansion of their ODD, but something more from an economic standpoint.
Do we get to the point where, let's just call it carrier A or fleet B, they can pick their own driver if they buy your truck, or how is that going to work from they go to the dealer, they buy the truck, or is Daimler going to operate this as a service?
We want to operate this in a traditional truck sales model or truck lease model. So the customer in this case would be the carrier, would buy the autonomous ready truck from us, purchase the subscription for the virtual driver as a service from Torque, and then operate those trucks themselves. So that's kind of the baseline. Of course, we can explore further as a service models to ease in, for example, the adoption of those vehicles by providing in an early phase those trucks as a service or even transport as a service to the carriers. But that is at their choice and at their demand.
What role will the dealers play? Will dealers have influence on the lanes because the dealers are there? They're on the ground floor. They understand how their customers, the carriers, are using these trucks. Do they come to you and say, "Hey, Joanna, we've noticed this Macon, Georgia to Savannah is a very popular route. We really need this." Do they have that on the ground intelligence that can help you either expand the ODD or find an additional partner just because the demand is there from the dealers?
So dealerships will play definitely a very important role in our sales model, in our business model, service and maintenance model. It will be definitely a phased approach where in the early stages you will see a lot of those units being highly controlled by Torque or Daimler working very closely with the fleets themselves. But as we are expanding and scaling, the dealers will absolutely play a role in basically the customer service, but also the sales process. We're envisioning a dealer sales and service certification program because they have to be trained on and educated on where these vehicles can be deployed, what is possible and what is also not possible. But we know that very well. Like with any new technology, think about on the electric side, we rolled out a dealer certification program. Even when I think back to the days when we introduced the DT12 automated manual transmission, we had to go on a road show and explain how it works and what it can do for fleets. This technology is definitely much more complicated, more complex, and we will have to ensure that it's deployed in stages and that we strike great partnerships and again training programs with our dealer network. But we are clearly committed to basically offering this product from the OEM side, so the autonomous ready Cascadia, through our regular sales channels, whether that's direct sales to the larger fleets or through our dealer sales network as we scale towards the end of this decade.
Where does maintenance come in? Will there be a certified, it's called a Daimler certified autonomous maintenance technician that will be able to maintain, change out the LiDAR, upgrade the compute? How will the maintenance aspect work as you scale this program?
So we have to strike here very well balanced because on the one hand side, you don't want to introduce rocket science technology, right, where you have to hire these highly specialized technicians. And someone was saying, we don't want to have to require a PhD to work on these trucks. Absolutely not. However, we need to also provide proper training in the replacement and the repair of those highly critical safety relevant components like the LiDARs or the compute unit. And that is what, again, what we anyway do when we launch new technology or any new component is setting up clear work instructions. We're doing this for the plant installation already because we are targeting building these in our factories. They will be completely, all the components will be installed at our factories. And so building off of those installation instructions, so to speak, we will build out also all the service and support documentation, manuals, and also programs. So the nice thing is that we can leverage what our electromobility group has done, and not so much maybe the content, but rather the approach. And again, through that dealer certification program, we already have some sort of a blueprint that we can use also for autonomy. So we want to make it easy. We don't want people to be scared when they open up the hood and feel like, oh my God, I've never seen this type of component. No, it is still a steering gear. It is still an alternator. It looks exactly the same as a 12 volt, but this is the 48 volt version. And technicians should be very comfortable working on these vehicles when it comes to the base chassis, but also when it comes to the autonomy.
What Daimler's going to do, they're going to create jobs. I could see a job in the future where there's a certified technician for electrification and autonomy. That's a new job. That's an example of how autonomy is going to create jobs. We have to get to the maintenance certification program where those individuals can learn those skills. That's a very valuable job, especially as we look into the future. As we look into the future, do you see Daimler exploring different alternative fuel sources or energy sources? Right now, you were at the ACT Expo recently. There's a lot of talk about, I can't tell you how many texts and phone calls I got. Hydrogen, hydrogen, hydrogen. And I was like, okay, well, when you listen to a lot of fish, that I am hydrogen. There's a lot of conversations around hydrogen. Will Daimler look to explore potentially alternative energy sources as well?
We're right now focusing on 3 propulsion technologies. First and foremost, diesel. We foresee that this is still going to be the propulsion technology of our industry for the foreseeable future. We're targeting to decarbonize our core markets, so US, Japan and Europe by 2039. But until then, diesel definitely is going to be the primary source of propulsion. Electric, of course, we continue to develop that further, support the investments into infrastructure, and then hydrogen as the dual zero emission source. And here we have already started the development in Europe with our Gen H2 vehicle. We've already completed the first successful run over 1,000 kilometers on a hydrogen fuel cell truck. And the other technology we're exploring is a hydrogen internal combustion engine propelled by hydrogen.
Could we get to a point at some point in the future, no timeline on this one, where the autonomous technology could eventually go on a hydrogen truck? Because hydrogen, from a technical perspective, can unlock a longer range than a battery electric truck today.
We would love that. So you asked me at the very beginning, why now electric and autonomous? And electric, because that's what we have in our toolkit today. If we've had a hydrogen fuel cell truck in our portfolio today, we probably would have picked that as a first demonstrator for zero emissions. But as you said, no timeline yet, but when the time is right, we will definitely explore that. Through this tech demonstrator, we are already learning what it takes to integrate autonomy, whether the hardware, but also the electronic interfaces, to the motion control interface. What does it take to integrate that in a different propulsion platform? So moving from diesel to electric, and then creating a blueprint how to move towards potentially a hydrogen solution as well.
There's diesel, there's electric, there's hydrogen. The world's a big place. It's a lot of time to go around the world. You fly from New York to Australia, it's over 22 hours, so quite a ways away to get to the other side of the world. One of the most fascinating markets that you briefly mentioned is Japan. I think Japan will become the largest market, in my opinion, over the next 10 to 15 years for automation and autonomy, because of the way that their regulations are structured around overtime hours, the aging population, and the government of Japan's willingness to invest in all things automation. Is when you look at different countries, we look at Norway, it's a very pro-electric vehicle country. You look at the United States, it's a mix. We are very pro-oil. You look at UK, they're looking into electrification. Other parts of the world are looking into hydrogen. Do we get to a point where perhaps a certain autonomous truck is rolled out with a propulsion system because that's what the country is used to, that's what they're expecting?
When we look at our approach towards our vehicle platform strategy, we want to make it scalable, propulsion agnostic, and that also means that it should be a platform that can be rolled out to other markets. So when we look into a different geography, let's say just to explore the potential there, we definitely are considering what would be the ideal platform to introduce this technology on. So for example, if you look to Europe, with all the efforts and the regulations going strongly towards zero emissions, that definitely, we are looking at a zero emissions platform, whether it's the electric Actros or, again, in the future, then a hydrogen platform there as well. So it plays a role in the decision that we have to make with what vehicle configuration to start in that particular geography. The good thing is, since our vehicles and platforms globally have a certain level of commonality, that could then also help us to bring parts of that technology back to the US. So we are looking into our global available platforms and assessing what makes most sense to leverage the most synergies and also scale effects as we look into the market expansion beyond the US.
Do you see your customers potentially running a hybrid fleet where perhaps they have some diesel autonomous trucks, perhaps they have some eCascadia electric autonomous trucks, and perhaps they have some, I'll call it eCascadia for hydrogen autonomous trucks? Do you see the potential of your customers running a hybrid fleet just based on purely on the demand of the lanes that they have to operate?
I think our customers will take a look at their carbon footprint in the future and will calculate how they best achieve a zero carbon footprint or near zero carbon footprint. And with that, I can definitely imagine that there would be fleets that are running different types of technologies and different types of geographies. And I know there are some very sophisticated private fleets that are looking into that already and actually lay out their entire portfolio accordingly. Where electric is best suited, that's where they spec electric trucks. Where diesel is best suited for their application, that's what they would spec there. And they're looking even at well-to-wheel type of decarbonization opportunities. So to answer your question, that's why we want to be propulsion agnostic from an autonomy perspective, because that will give our customers the ultimate choice to not have to worry about what type of propulsion do I choose if I want to be able to run a certain lane without a driver, right? but rather, hey, this is my portfolio, and now I can go and decide, can I run this lane with a human driver, or can I potentially run this lane with a virtual driver? And that is the ultimate freedom of choice when it comes to autonomy, that I don't have to worry about all that other stuff, but just focus on leveraging the benefits of autonomy when I want to. And right now we're targeting the highest configuration with a sleeper cab on highway diesel. But in the future, as we're rolling out other configurations, we want to be able that we can plug in autonomy there as well.
If you and I were having this conversation 3 years ago, I wouldn't be able to say what I'm about to say. Everything you're describing, from the electrification, from the propulsion system, from the hydrogen, requires infrastructure that has to be updated and changed. It's now easier to build an autonomous system than it is, because the infrastructure doesn't have to constantly be updated. If you have a customer that goes all in on electrification, and then let's say hydrogen has better results, the economics make more sense. Oh, rip it all out. We're going to put hydrogen infrastructure. It's easier to build autonomy. You're running the autonomy business at Daimler. Does this become a catalyst for you?
I wouldn't say that it's easier. I think every technology comes with their own challenges, let's say it that way. For us, the infrastructure is probably not the primary challenge that we have to tackle. For us, it's more the ODD expansion capabilities, the reach, and ensuring the uptime. An autonomous truck is only valuable if you can truly run it without any human intervention on a given lane 24/7. So that's what we need to hone in on, and that's what we want to focus on when we think about performance and market leadership and autonomy, and not so much, what's the underlying propulsion technology. So the agnosticism will help us to focus really on the performance of the autonomy. When it comes to infrastructure rollout for autonomous vehicles, there's still investment required. You need the ability to calibrate, you need the ability to do pre and post trip inspections, have a launch and landing pad, so to speak, and also have the adequate digital infrastructure and data download capabilities in your hub. But if you compare that to setting up hydrogen fueling stations, it's a different type of complexity that we're tackling here.
It's a different type of complexity, and there's a lot of regulatory that goes around when you're moving energy or fuels and the various different things that you have to go through there. And with the infrastructure, from an autonomy standpoint, a lot of it's digital. It's a lot easier to upgrade an Azure or an AWS cloud than it is to build out physical infrastructure. When your customers get possession, and you publicly stated 2027 that Daimler will be selling or operating, whatever term you want to use, but they'll be in the market. How will your customers judge it? Will they look at uptime, success? Will that be that key defining metric, where if you have a carrier who says, okay, Joanna, I like to start with 3 to learn the technology, and then if you hit a certain, let's say, call it uptime metric, I like to go to 10, and if that metric's hit, do you see, is uptime going to be that big metric that your customers are going to look to judge you as you commercialize and scale this autonomy?
Yeah, so for me, it's definitely looking at the TCO benefits that we're claiming with this technology. So they will, it is a TCO-driven business, so I'm pretty sure that they will be able to play that back to us, whether we are achieving the promised savings, and definitely also utilization. And that kind of goes, of course, hand in hand. So you say uptime, utilization of the vehicles is also going to be very critical. And we know that this is something that is in our customers' minds. That's why they believe in it. If it works, it is absolutely a game changer for their business and will have significant benefits for them. But it has to be proven out that, let's say the vehicle is not down 40% of the time, but really can operate as promised continuously, is not constrained by hours of operation, for example.
The customer's spoken to you, put metrics in place. Okay, we need at least 16 hours a day for they can get that return on total cost of ownership, and they say the payback period has to be X amount of time. Is there a model or a pattern that's starting to emerge from your customers of what they're looking for a payback period for the truck?
There's no numbers, Grayson, I can share with you, but I know we are building out very sophisticated TCO models and working there with our customers on the inputs and trying to really capture all the pluses and minuses that it takes to operate an autonomous vehicle. So really building out that TCO financial statement. And I think that's something that everyone will look at, not just our customers. We will look at that very detailed even before we launch. And through piloting this technology, we have a great opportunity to make sure that we capture all the factors that are influencing TCO from start to end.
As you factor in and develop those economics, are you doing that with customer input, where you're working groups and you're working with your customers to truly understand all the nitty details of the things that the carriers might think about that perhaps from the OEM side that you might not think about on a daily basis?
So we have established through Torque a customer advisory council, and through that council we have great opportunity to capture a lot of feedback, not just on the economics, but the technology as well, how these trucks will operate. We have to also consider all the other tasks and activities that usually require a human that sometimes the driver is taken care of. So now you don't have that driver. So do you have to bring in another person to do that, or can you combine it with another task or another role that you already have within your operation? So some of the discussions that are going on, and really we're looking at this holistically together with them along the entire customer journey.
Will we eventually see Daimler? You make a lot of really great trucks. You make buses. You make all sorts of fun toys. I'll call them toys, but they're workhorses that make money for your customers. You're not just a Class 8 company. You're a Daimler Truck. You're a truck company. I was a kid, I had Tonka trucks, so they're cool, and I like trucks. Will you eventually take the autonomy down into smaller, perhaps Class 6 trucks, to other forms potentially in the future as you look to grow the autonomy business inside of Daimler?
We're laser focused on Class 8 right now on highway. However, we are looking into road mapping the future, look at what are other use cases that could be promising fast followers. Definitely with this demonstrator, for example, this almost forces us to look into a shorter, potentially lighter application and what that would mean economically. I think it starts always from the customer view, like what is the customer benefit in this segment? And we need to understand, is there really a TCO benefit of running full level 4 autonomy in this segment versus the cost of running it? Is there an issue? Is there a problem to solve? And if there is, then we go the next step and we think through what would be the platform to help them solve this issue, and then who would be the partner to go in with to solve this issue. In this case, there's a driver shortage, let's say, on the drayage application. Maybe that's something we need to look at. So really coming always from the solution-oriented space, like what is really missing and can we plug in autonomy to help support our customers better. And so, yeah, I think the next use case we're looking at is definitely kind of that short and medium repeatable route one.
You're looking to the market. Is that a fair statement that you're looking to the market to see what the demand is today and what it will be tomorrow?
Yes, absolutely. We're looking to our customers to understand what their pain points are. And then would this be a technology to solve their pain points? Sometimes you can also say, maybe I don't know my pain points yet. So we also need to look at 1 or 2 steps ahead and see how the market is developing. And could there potentially be a constraint where autonomous can help our customers continue to move more efficiently?
When I read your corporate financial filings and I read your investor day documents, there's a clear common denominator going over the last couple of years from those public statements. Daimler's all in on autonomy. It's very clear. It's there. I think there was 3 or 4 slides in your last investor day just dedicated purely to autonomy, and it was one of the key. It was in this deck was identified as one of the key pillars of success for the future of Daimler. Where did Daimler's passion come from for autonomy?
Yes, first of all, I want to totally underline what you said. We're all in on autonomous. And why did we decide we want to invest? Because, like I said, we saw a huge business potential in autonomy. First step for our customers. When you realize that our customers cannot move freight because they don't have drivers to pick up the freight, when you realize that they're constrained by hours of operation, when you realize the immense growth of freight demand over the next couple of years, and then you realize, hey, there's actually a technology that could solve that. That was the moment when we said, hey, it makes sense to go all in. That moment was not, let's say, 2015. That moment was in 2019. Because why? Because we saw that there's companies out there like Torque Robotics who have the competency, who have the capability to develop self-driving software safely and reliably. We saw that the hardware development took off for long-range LiDAR technology, for example, that you absolutely need for the on-highway use case, long distances, perception capabilities, and faster speeds. Everything kind of came together. So the need from our customers, plus there was a solution that could address that need. And combining that ultimately gave us the purpose and the motor to invest and go all in on autonomous.
They made the right decision. We're now in 2024. Let's go to the end of the decade of 2030. We'll sit back here. Your investors will sit here, and your shareholders will applaud you and say, job well done, Daimler, because you're leaning into the future. You're building the foundation. As I said, you had the 50% plus market share in trucks today. My opinion is that you're a leader in this. Daimler Truck is a member of the Road to Autonomy Index. I truly believe you're going to be a leader in autonomous trucking, and we'd like to see you have a 50% plus market share, and your investors would like to see you have a 50% plus market share. The reason I highlight 2030, because you're publicly stated 2027 is when you'll begin commercial operations with Torque. I'm assuming those lanes will be in the Southwest, very similar to all the competitors, and perhaps in Texas. Why target 2027? Is it where the technology is going to be? Is there some internal modeling from your economist as, okay, this is where the ultimate demand peak is going to be? Why target 2027?
2027 is driven by our confidence in the technology being ready by that time. Where we are currently at on the vehicle development, chassis development, by 2027, this will all be in series production state. When we think about the autonomous driving hardware, this will all have production intent readiness by 2027. And also our partner Torque will be ready to ultimately commercialize driver out routes by 2027. So we feel good about that date because all the pieces will come into play by that date. And we know the progress that we've made so far and what we still have ahead of us. So that's where that date came from. And that's why we also felt confident to announce that last year, because we have made certain progress already towards that. We know that we weren't there yet. So we didn't come out last year and said, oh, next year it's all driver out. No, we said, hey, we are at a good state right now where we can share what we're doing from a development standpoint. You've seen we're very open in sharing where we are at on the vehicle platform. You can see that on YouTube, and very well explained how much progress we've made. We are very transparent that we're not yet in a production ready state, that we're still in a development phase. And so 3 years from now, we are absolutely confident that we can bring this technology to market, and then we scale. So that is also something to be very clear on, that the scaling will start in 27, and then towards the end of the decade, we want to be at that kind of normal year state.
As you get towards the end of the decade, do you have to retool a plant? Do you have to build a new plant to build these autonomous trucks? Or how is Daimler going to scale it from a physical building of the truck standpoint?
I'm not going to make any statements on our production footprint, but we will build these vehicles in our series production plant.
Does that give York an advantage, do you feel, because you have the expertise of building trucks on a factory line, both from an insurance perspective, a reliability perspective, a public trust perspective, where the public knows, the insurance underwriters, who they're going to look at this very closely, they know that, okay, this was built to Daimler quality, this was built to Daimler grade. Does that give you a competitive advantage as you move forward into autonomy?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we hear from our customers as well that they prefer a factory installed solution. Why? Because you can ensure repeatable quality. We have all the processes there. We don't believe in retrofit solutions for scaling that could maybe work when you're still in a demo or early, let's say, innovation fleet phase. And we need to make sure that we have the right output. You said you are wishing us that we have 50% of that market share as well. We do too. And therefore, we need to make sure that we to scale also in volumes. And I won't give you a volume number, but we want to be ready for that as well. And that can only happen in a highly sophisticated plant environment that has all the process steps figured out, and it's a very well-oiled machine. You have all the quality checks on the line, you have it end of line. And so that is really the goal, to be able to produce these trucks just like any other truck today. It will just be an autonomous ready truck.
All right, I'll make you a deal. When you publicly release on either through an SEC filing or an IR filing the numbers, we'll have you back to discuss the numbers. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
Awesome. How do you see the overall autonomous trucking market looking in 2027? The last couple of years, we've seen a lot of change in the autonomous trucking sector, and we're going to continue to see change. What is your outlook for the market in 2027? How do you see it looking?
So we believe we'll see a more consolidation. There will definitely be more than just one player in the market, which is good. And we want, of course, some healthy competition there. But not more than a handful of players in the market. And 2027, I believe, is the year when we will see things just starting up. I don't believe this is the year where we will see thousands of these units being produced and launched, but I can see us for sure. That's what we communicated, and others bringing those to the market by 27, and then the scaling will happen rather towards the end of the decade.
I agree with that. The consolidation is coming. It's going to be substantial. I believe you're going to be down to a handful of operating systems. I'll probably say 3 or 4 operating systems, very similar to Windows and Apple OS, but you're going to have probably 2 more. Well, you have Linux today, and you have a couple other fringe ones, so it's going to be very similar to that. 27, when you look at it and you study where the market is, it could be that catalyst point where the commercialization really starts to move. Very similar to, okay, well, hey, company A is doing $1 million a quarter in autonomy revenue. Oh, okay, that's a good start. Well, now they're doing $2 million a quarter. You're going to start to actually get meaningful numbers, because if you look at and you compare this to the autonomous vehicle side, Waymo, I ran some of the numbers now. They're actually making decent revenue. It's not enough to pay back, but Waymo's now becoming a business for the revenue that they're starting to generate. I believe on the autonomous trucking side, we're going to have that Waymo moment in 27 where the revenue starts to add up, say $100 million a year, perhaps across the board, across the sector. I'm not saying one OS, but across the board. As we work to 2030, things start to get really interesting, and then autonomy becomes a business. Autonomy is going to be a very big business. Daimler hopefully is going to have a very large percentage of that business. In your opinion, what is the future of Daimler Truck as it relates to autonomy?
We want to be the market share leader in autonomy as well, just like we are with the, let's say, traditional core vehicles. And we feel we have all the right ingredients to get there. We have a solid vehicle platform, solid concept there. We have a great integrated model together with Torque. We know we will have a really competitive and compelling cost position, and we have great partners. Plus, we have the entire network already established from our dealer network. You mentioned production sites. We have production work, and we have a platform that can also scale to other markets. And that could be other regions or other use cases. So I feel good about our autonomous future, and I feel also good that we're doing it for the right reasons and kind of at the right pace. We set ourselves an ambitious but achievable goal. And with that, I think we have definitely a great opportunity here, and it is one of the largest business potentials for Daimler Truck in the long term.
Autonomous trucking could become, because the way that the economics are going to work, it could end up becoming much larger than your traditional business. I mentioned earlier, I'm a big little kid at heart, and I love the Tonka trucks were great. So for all the little kids out there, or the big kids, including myself, the one request that we have for the Daimler trucks as you move to autonomy, can you teach them to play the honk game? When we go by in the car, we can go honk, honk. Can you teach them to honk, honk? And then maybe there's a virtual reality person that waves and says, hi, I'm a Daimler autonomous truck, and let's keep on trucking. Can we eventually get the honk game figured out there?
You know, I'm not an engineer, so I can promise anything. Of course we can do that.
How great would that, I love that line, but how great would that be from a customer acceptance standpoint? It was funny, when I was a kid, my grandfather, I'll date myself, we had CB radios in the car, because that was before GPS, before cell phones, when you had to find out there's a traffic accident on the highway. You pull out, and then the truckers would say some interesting things, and my grandfather had his call sign, and he would do grandfather stuff, and I have no idea what these code words he's saying, but he would find out about the traffic when we were going somewhere, and it worked really, really well, and I'd play the honk game, and it built trust with truckers. So I was like, oh, these are really nice individuals, really nice men and women. Okay, well, perhaps the honk game could build it. But I know you're not an engineer, so I'm not going to hold you to it, but perhaps the Daimler Truck engineering team could figure it out one day.
Sure, they're going to tell me, why did you promise this? This is probably the easiest feature we can implement.
It's always great to have you on the Road to Autonomy podcast. We thank you for coming back again. We wish Daimler nothing but success. We can't wait to see where you go as you move towards your 2027 milestone, and eventually to, I'll call it the tipping point in 2030, where it becomes a meaningful business for Daimler Truck. For today, as we look to wrap up, what would you like our listeners and viewers to take away with them today?
I think the autonomous future is inevitable, and I want them to trust that we're doing it the right way with safety in mind always, but also that this will definitely be a game changer when it comes to providing freight and moving goods more efficiently, safer, and we all will benefit from this technology. So more to come, and looking forward to keeping everyone up to date on our progress.
Daimler is building and developing autonomous trucks the right way. They're building factory grade, high quality autonomous trucks with high quality autonomous driving systems. Daimler will play a very large role in the future of autonomy, and it will become a very big business for Daimler Truck. The future is bright, the future is autonomous, the future is Daimler Truck. Joanna, thank you so much for coming on the road to autonomy today.
Thank you very much.